What's up everyone, welcome back, awesome to have you here. Today we are continuing with our series on Salesforce Industries and how the architecture really fits together. So what are the different layers that we're talking about when we're talking about building with Salesforce Industries? What do they each do? What is some of the terminology? So today we're just going to get an understanding of what these different words mean and how they fit together. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Alright, so when we're talking about Salesforce Industries, there's kind of three layers that we need to be aware of. We have the digital layer, which is kind of like the front end user interface experience. And then we have the data service layer, which is more about how we're retrieving and getting data, more of the back end, if you will, of Salesforce Industries. And then finally we have a third layer, which is about the developer experience. And this is more about the supporting tools that are available for you as you are building this to actually help you build it and manage what you're building better and more comprehensively as the projects get way more complicated. Alright, so in our front end kind of UI layer, we have two different tools here that we need to be aware of, which is the FlexCards and the Omniscripts. Now, FlexCards are kind of the cards that you will be displaying your information on. You can do some really cool things with the layout here, but it's all about arranging the information in a way that makes sense to the user and that you can kind of drag and drop these different graphics or these different pieces of information on. And then we have our Omniscripts, which are more for writing out the flow or the process for a business procedure. So this is more about the step-by-step, when this happens, do this, or when this happens, display this. And again, we're in this UI layer, so we're just focusing on how the user is seeing this and what is the underlying logic behind what the user is seeing. This layer is not about necessarily getting or manipulating the data, it's about displaying it through our cards and then through a logical sequence with our Omniscripts. The next layer down is our data services layer, and this is made up of two tools. We have data Raptors and we have integration procedures, and they work together. So our data Raptors, which for some reason I'm always picturing some sort of dinosaur with the name data raptor, but the purpose of a data raptor is really to transform or update all of your data. So the data that you get, how do you want to manipulate it, what do you want to change, what do you want to use, what do you not want to use, that's all in the data raptors. The integration procedures are all about the server side of things. So it's about talking to APIs and getting the data. It's about the different actions that happen from a single server call. So we're going to the server, we're getting the data and we're bringing it back. And that's what the integration procedure is about. It's helpful to think about the naming of the integration procedure as the literal integration between what's on the server and then the data that you're actually trying to use and manipulate, which you will do in your data raptors. So this layer is all about getting the data and then manipulating, cleaning, and kind of using that data in the way that you would want to, so that you can then pass it on to your front end layer, your cards and your Omniscripts, to actually display it to the end user. Our final layer that we're talking about today is our developer tools layer, and this one is all about the supporting tools that are available for you when you are creating these kind of projects and these new customizations within Salesforce Industries. And there are an ever-growing number of tools here, both available natively through Salesforce, but also that are available on the App Exchange. So don't forget to check that out because there are some awesome tools out there for you. The ones that we're going to be talking about today is the IDX Workbench and the IDX Build tool. Now, the IDX Workbench, I'm just going to refer to it as Workbench from now on, is all about helping us with our DevOps in Salesforce. And if you're wondering, DevOps, what does that mean? DevOps is kind of a fancy term for how do we manage all of our changes that we're making with code or within a platform. So let's say that we make a change in one environment, but maybe this is our developer environment or like a sandbox or a playground environment, and we want to move it into a production environment. Well, how do we do that? And how do you do it when it's one person, or how do you do it when perhaps you have a team of 5 or 6 or 10 people who are all making changes and all working on different features? This can get very complicated, and it is quite a big problem to face. So that's why there's kind of this whole industry, DevOps, around designing tools and processes and strategies to actually manage this really well. And the Workbench tool is one that is designed specifically for Salesforce Industries to help us manage and migrate some of these changes, specifically the metadata of Salesforce. So not the actual customer data, but the way that you've configured things, the way that you've built things, all of that hard work that you put into changing and customizing Salesforce, that is your metadata. And that is what Workbench helps you to manage and save and move from one environment to another. Then we have the build tool, and the build tool is a command line tool where you can install packages and you can execute commands. If you come from a developer background, then I often find that people really love this. It feels very much like home to them, but if you are not from a developer background, then this can be quite intimidating. It feels very much like a hacker sort of tool, but it's nothing to be afraid of, and it is very, very useful if you put in a little bit of effort to learn how it works. So neither of these are 100% necessary to learn the basics, but they are very useful, and you'll find that if you're working in a corporate environment or a professional environment where this is being built with or set up, then these tools are extremely useful and help to maintain kind of the safety, the longevity of what you're building, so that if things go wrong, you have some backups and you've got some good strategies in place. So that's our overview of Salesforce Industries and the architecture underlying it. We have covered the UI layer, we've covered the data services layer, and we've covered the developer tools or the support layer. Each of those had 2 kind of tools within it. So we did cards and Omniscripts, we did integration procedures and data raptors, and we have done our developer tools, Workbench, and the build tool. So I hope that clears up some of the terminology and gives you some footing to go off and start to explore and get your hands dirty trying something new. So till next time, give it a go. There's a link to some playgrounds and some badges below that I would recommend you try out. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much.